5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
Good evening, everybody. Before we start the podcast proper, I want to read something to you. You should apply this to any crisis you see coming over the horizon and use it to question things that have happened in the past, for instance, the pandemic. And it is an example of exponential growth. Now, the exponential growth that I'm talking about is the exponential growth of risk or danger. Let me read and visualize this. It's 1 p.m. Imagine a normal-sized football or baseball stadium. You're sitting in a seat at the very top of the stadium. You're overlooking the bowl of the whole stadium. To make things more interesting, imagine the stadium is completely watertight. The question is, if a single drop of water is added to the stadium, and then 1 minute later it doubles, and 2 more drops are added, and then 1 minute after that it doubles again to 4 drops, and so on. The water volume doubling in size every minute. How much time do you think you have to leave your seat and get out of the stadium before the water reaches your seat at the very top? Think about it for a moment. It seems like you'd have plenty of time to get out, right? Especially given that you can see it rising and could judge for yourself when to leave. The first drop of water lands right in the middle of the field at 1 p.m. Tick-tock goes the clock. It's 1:45 p.m. You've been watching the water slowly filling the stadium grounds down there on the field. 45 minutes after the first drop at 1:45 p.m., the water is covering the field and lapping at the seats of the lower first level rows. It doesn't look terribly deep. Seems like plenty of time to get out if need be. At 1:45 p.m., the stadium, as far as the water is concerned, is 93% empty. No worries, right? It's 1:48 p.m. Shockingly, as you watch, the stadium goes from 93% empty to being half full in just about 3 minutes. Holy shit, you better get out of there. But guess what? It's too late. In 1 more minute, the stadium goes from half full to completely 100% full and spilling over the top. So you sit and watch the single drop growing, doubling, and after 45 minutes, all you see is the playing field covered with water. And then within 4 more minutes, the water fills the whole stadium. This means that you think you are safe because it seems that you have plenty of time left. Whereas due to the exponential growth, you really have to take action much sooner if you want to have any chance of getting out alive. Think about that. Let it sink in. And apply that to the preparedness in your life. Prepare for food shortages, energy shortages, economic crisis, whatever you want to insert into that equation. Worthwhile thinking about it. And now I'll turn it back to the host. Go ahead, Jim.
Tonight we're going to be looking into a little different topic, kind of dovetailing with last week on the pushback theme. This week, looking at some of the international stuff that's going on. Tensions in the Netherlands, Indian farmers, Sri Lanka, Italy, Poland. This all dovetails in with the Canadian trucker thing that was going on last month. Dutch farmers have blocked supermarkets, distribution centers, and roads in response to government plans to cut nitrogen emissions. Dutch police fired shots at tractors full of farmers who were protesting against plans to cut nitrogen emissions in northern Netherlands. Police said they were responding to a threatening situation when the farmers who were attempting to push past the blockade to get into the highway near the province of Friesland started to drive their tractors into officers and their vehicles. In reality, that didn't happen. There's a clearly video out there that shows the farmers were going way out of their way to get away from the cops and the barricades. That being said, MP Caroline van der Blas called for an emergency debate with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte and Minister of Justice and Security Dylan Zagarius. about the escalating protests. Yes. Meanwhile, in Poland, thousands of Polish farmers gathered in Warsaw to express their disagreement with the policy of their authorities in the field of agriculture. Participants of the action were dissatisfied with the increase in prices for fertilizer and the import of agricultural products from other countries. Now that sounds familiar. The mass protest was initiated by the Arguna organization. According to its head, Michael Kolodziejczak, if I pronounced that right, sorry if I didn't, it's obvious to Polish farmers that the state-owned companies earn on inflation, and they're not worried about the situation of the farmers. Meanwhile, in Italy, Italian farmers also went out into the streets to protest with their slogans reading, "We're not slaves, we're farmers," and "We cannot make ends meet." The unjustified and nefarious increase in raw materials and necessities have brought the Italian agricultural sector to its knees.
So basically, it doesn't sound like there's any continuity here. But if you go back and listen to what Paul read, and then continue on with that quasi monologue, there's a lot of stuff going on, and this is brings us to the international pushback. This is why I said it kind of dovetailed last week. What we were talking about was more local stuff and grassroots stuff. But the world's on fire. What do you think, fellas?
Looks like the global reset is in full swing.
Well, that's what the pushback is against. These World Economic Forum, Davos types, United Nations, globalist type people are pushing these policies. And, look at what's happening in the Netherlands, which, shall we say, is the jump off point for these types of recent protests. The reason that they gave was because there were excessive nitrogen oxide emissions that don't comply with the UN climate accord agreements or whatever they are.
Isn't it a funny thing that they looking at that particular whatever they don't comply, right? But what about China? What about the emissions?
Yeah.
What about the emissions that they produce? Some of those, like North Korea, even or South Korea, Vietnam. The emissions and the pollution that they produce is worse than like the rest of the world combined. But nobody says a word about that. Nobody does anything about that.
And there is a specific reason for that. Well, two reasons, really. One, they don't really have control over India and China. But more importantly, it's not about the climate agenda. It is about changing the world and gathering more power and control to a club group of leaders, elites, banksters, whatever you want to call them, over what they call what's his name, Yuval Harari calls useless eaters. He's a protege of Klaus Schwab as well.
Yeah, that Schwab list is pretty interesting. I didn't really want to get into him too deeply, but we definitely have a clip here from Webster University assistant professor Ralph Schallenheimer, which goes into some detail on some of the reasoning that we were mentioning. I think he has three points to make. It's 2 minutes long, but it's definitely, if you ever want to stop in between or just cut it, let me know. But it's definitely worth listening to because it gives a pretty good view from that part of the world.
Let's hear it.
I mean, I think this is a larger trend. You already mentioned, Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, and those were already symptoms of that pushback. But the situation we find ourselves in, I would say it consists of 4 different groups, right? One group is the activists. I mean, those are the people who really believe that the end of the world is around the corner, and they're overrepresented in media, in academia, and in the cultural sphere. Then you have the governments and politicians, and what they do is they like to virtue signal to those people because they believe, right? Most of them are on Twitter. They're very active on Twitter. They believe that they represent a huge chunk of the population. And then you have companies who want to make a profit off of it, right? For example, I don't believe that Unilever cares particularly about the environment, but it's something they have to say because they wanted to pander to a specific clientele. So you have a kind of a Bermuda triangle of ideology that consists of those three groups. And the quote unquote, when I mean, the working class or the middle class, you could also call them the people who just pay their taxes and want to live their lives, like people who don't spend a lot of time on social media. They're trapped in this because it's more and more encroaching on their daily lives. I mean, you just mentioned it, right? In Germany, to leave nuclear energy behind was a purely political, ideological position. And the people were told, oh, don't worry, we're going to replace it with wind, we're going to replace it with solar. Now it turns out that's not going to work, and they will get poorer. And I think this is part of this. They realize now that they accepted the eccentric ideas of their elites to the extent that they did not believe that it will have a negative effect on their life. But now they see this negative effect. And this is what I tried to put together in my piece, right? It's school policy in Virginia. It is, agricultural policy in the Netherlands. It is, gas prices in France. It's nuclear energy in Germany. So these things are driven by the same thing, that the people say, wait a moment, we are supposed to be democracies when we constantly vote for governments that in the end pursue goals that are interesting to, those 5% of people who are very active, like who are very much in the public eye. Like the progressives, they are in some areas, like they're insane. This is no longer common sense. They just want to switch to a common sense party.
So interesting, because there's 2 more drops of water in the stadium. That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah. And if you didn't see it coming, it may already be too late. But like you said, people are pushing back. The farmers in the Netherlands, it was glorious to see them come with their combines, and they fill it up with, shall we say, horse dung.
Yeah, the all natural. Yeah.
Spraying it on the right. That's what they want. They want the farmers to switch back to natural fertilizer, which is all well and good, if you're growing stuff in your backyard.
And while they're attempting to cut out CO2 and kill the cattle off because they're perpetrators of the fart.
Yes. Methane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, now we've got Spain, Italy, other places. What else do we got here? We got reading from Legal Insurrection has a piece on here talking about the collapse in Sri Lanka. Now, just 5 short years ago, the World Economic Forum put a glowing piece up on their website about how Sri Lanka was going to become this oasis of prosperity and, climate friendly, this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
And the past few weeks, they're chasing down politicians in the streets, pushing their Lamborghinis into the river, killing people for food, standing in miles long. People are standing for days in line in the hopes of getting some fuel. They're doing the same thing in Ghana, which was another emerging prosperous African nation.
Oh,
and
sure.
now it's on the verge of bankruptcy.
And what's interesting, and I'm not trying to sideline, but hey, Joe, what social quote unquote social media do you use?
Oh, I use Truth. Truth I use. That's pretty much, and Facebook, but I only really use Facebook for like if I go on a marketplace or once in a while I look at something. I really don't use it.
So do you I don't know, do you get any news from there? There's a point to this, believe it or not.
Do I get any news? The only news I've been getting from social media really has been from Truth Social. That's about it.
What about on normal viewing, TV wise?
I don't really watch TV that much. I watch YouTube. I watch channels that support my hobbies pretty much.
So selective view. So well then you're not a good test subject, because my point was you can't find any information on this in the mainstream media anywhere.
Well,
Yeah. I watch. You know what? The one thing I do watch news-wise, I do watch the Five on Fox News,
Yeah.
and pretty much that's really all I watch. I get home from work for an hour. I watch the Five, and if I don't get my news out of the Five, whatever I hear there, and then there is a wise man that I listen to during the day. He usually fills me in on the news also.
Okay. And who might that be?
His name is Paul Stradamus.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
And
he's usually filling my head with the local with
Oh,
with the
okay.
latest news. So
Well, yeah, I was actually going to introduce people, namely you two, with different nicknames, and I was mulling around the resident historian, um, and the voice of reason. I was going to say for Joe, but I don't know. I'm still mulling him around, but I digress.
all
well,
right, well,
that's the first time everybody associated me with the voice of reason.
Well,
So
I think
I,
the irony was thick.
yes, I'm gonna have to push back a little bit there. If he's getting his news from the Five, first of all, we can't just let that go. All right, I'm
Well, I need a
sorry.
cough button now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Fox News is just terrible. I mean,
Well,
yeah,
be that as it may, have you heard? And I honestly I don't watch them because I don't do cable. I do selective viewing. But have you heard? And I think this is important for a couple of reasons. Have you heard any of this in any of those resources?
no,
no.
no. The only place you'll find it is on independent media, YouTubers, blogs,
Sky
uh,
News.
Sky News. Sky News is actually pretty good.
I do watch
Tuck,
I do watch Sky News sometimes. Like I'll watch I see a YouTube video that's from Sky News and has some a topic that interests me. I'll watch that.
like they're mocking Joe Biden or something.
Yeah,
Well, they do. Yeah, they do that quite a bit because I think they were dealing with the quitter from the UK, so now they got this guy to pick on. But it's interesting because it was difficult finding something. I literally had to dig and find clips out of clips. There's a couple of the BBC stuff, but I'm not really. The Federalist has some good stuff on the Dutch farmers, but come to find out, like you were saying on True Social, even today, and I should have bookmarked it. There's even more of this pushback going on because people are tired all over the world of sitting on cans to wait to get. What was the gas in Haiti? I mentioned it the other day. It was
$14 a gallon.
$14 a gallon. Rice was like $27 for a bag.
Well,
In
what do you
Haiti.
need gas? What do you need gas for in Haiti? You can walk anywhere you want to go.
I don't know. I've never been to Haiti, but maybe they're trading it for bullets. I don't know. But they're
Oh.
walking around. They're walking around with AKs. My question is, why aren't they crossing the border, the southern border, like their cousins did a couple of years or last year? But in any case, it's insane. And I'm gonna move on to another line, but cap it off by saying this: we're the only ones. The great United States with 400 million guns, we're the only ones that aren't doing this. And to the degree that we did do it, the truckers made a trip from California, Washington to D.C., and then the January 6th production, they're trying to make that into something. I've never with 400 million guns. An insurrection doesn't happen with no guns. So, and I don't want to get on that topic again, but it's baffling to me. It's baffling to me why we don't see anything of the sort in this country and why we don't hear anything about it all over the world.
Well, I think one thing that I think that people should be very, very aware of is that the Democratic Party is bad. So is the Republican Party. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just the Republican Party is just they're in disguise or something where
Yeah.
it's make believe, but our government is bad. There's no
Yeah, you're being kind there. I mean, first of all, it's a uniparty. We've all seen the pictures of, Republicans yelling at Democrats, and then, when the session is over, we catch them on a hot cam or a hot mic, you know, slapping each other on the back or fist bumping or whatever.
yeah,
They're all part of the same club, and they don't care about the people.
right.
Something like, what was it, 68 Republicans in the House just voted for the assault rifle ban?
Yeah,
68 of them.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's absolutely nuts.
They
It-
do not represent their constituents.
They
Well,
don't.
not only that, but that's a blatant disrespect for the Constitution, and I have no tolerance for that, none
Yeah,
whatsoever.
and as far as why, I tell you, I rack my brain. I rack my brain trying to figure this out, and I have a particular beef with veterans, and I've confronted a couple of them over this, and I get the idea that, if you've been in a position where you had to kill people or whatever, and you see how lack of law and order can devolve into horrific stuff. You don't want to see that in our country. But there is something, we have crossed so many red lines. I don't understand. I don't know if it's something in the food, in the water, if we've just been too wealthy for too long and we've become so soft that it's going to take something so shocking to light that fuse. I don't understand it.
Well, I there's an old saying, and I don't know how true it necessarily is, but it rings true in some regard. If you came back from the war crazy, you probably went into the war crazy. And I'm saying that because there's a predisposition for certain attitudes, and in fact, there's predisposition for selection of the parties or the beliefs that you'll have throughout your life, and that's a scientific fact. But and I wasn't prepared to bring any of those charts, as it were, up, so I don't have any citations as the young leftists always ask for. But the fact of the matter is, if they did their own homework, they'd find out that that's true. That
Mhm.
there's different brains that go to different sides of the aisle. That's just the way it is. There's a lot more logic on the right, and the left and the right versus the conservative and the liberal I think the conservatization is more of a tangible thing. Although that's, in all fairness, during the Trump administration, and the spending, I can't say that was 100% down the line of conservatism. But again, that's another show. But I
No,
don't know,
but
Paul. Go ahead.
it was, like I've said before, you have to like Trump just because all the most evil, corrupt, uh, Baphomet worshiping scumbags hated him. All right.
Well, that's a pretty good sign that he's on the right track. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And he was, I mean, he's a Democrat. He's a lifelong Democrat, but he identified some of the problems. And the worst thing about him was it was a populist movement. And if there's one thing that the international globo homos
Yeah.
can't stand, it's populism. So they had to destroy him at any cost, as they say.
Oh yeah, which segues us directly into Satan Claus, Schwab. He's an interesting character, and I'm not gonna go in. I'm not gonna to give him the pleasure of me giving a full biography. But the guy's probably as big or more of a scumbag than George Soros. Just put it that way. Going back
Yeah.
going back
And
to the Nazi years.
I'll let you slide on not going into the biography because I have a feeling we will be presented with an opportunity to speak more about him in the future.
Well, we can do an in-depth. We can call it a forensic scumbag study. And I'm trying to keep this rated G because, or at least PG-13, because this guy is, well, we'll leave it. Let me read a couple of his bullet points from his own thoughts. This is from Klaus Martin Schwab himself. And I don't even know when this was particularly written, but I imagine this is his beliefs because this guy is a child of the devil.
Yeah.
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it. All right. The U.S. won't be the world's leading superpower. These are his predictions, as it were. You won't die waiting for an organ donor. They'll be made on 3D printers. That almost sounds like a meme. You'll eat much less meat. Meat will be an occasional treat, not a staple, for the good of the environment and our health. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change, / Soros's open borders. Polluters, this is precious. this goes back to what Joe was saying. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. There will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history. You can be, let's see, you can be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space. So again, I don't know when this was written, but Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. So it's some hybrid statements, because no matter how evil you are, because this guy is Dr. Evil, he thinks he's going to moderate with some of his rhetoric. This is unbelievable. It's the audacity and the narcissism that it cracks me up.
Yeah,
Any
well,
thoughts?
we've got recordings from these people, whether it was Davos or some other World Economic Forum meeting, saying, I understand that, the normies, they don't agree with what we're doing. That's okay. They're just too stupid. We know what is best, and we're going ahead with it. This was some woman. I don't remember who it was. And I'm paraphrasing, but that is their attitude. They're better than you. You're a useless eater. They don't care if you die. They don't care if. As
They
a matter of
want
fact,
you to die.
they would prefer it.
Yeah. Well, hence the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, that's.
I believe that instigated that the part of this whole thing for. Oh, look at the small businesses that were wiped out. Look at the nationalization that's being attempted. In the industries, the passports to travel, reducing international travel alone reduces quote unquote pollution. But what they don't want, if you notice, and everything we talk about always comes together. What they don't want you going to some other country to rabble rouse. Just like you can't find a story on any of this stuff, because if you have this, if you have the information, you'll be pissed off, and you'll be sticking your head out the window and saying, "We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore."
That's right. Why aren't we doing that here? That's why they can't allow it to be seen.
No.
But there are other countries, and look at who's fallen. You mentioned Sri Lanka. The prime minister tried fleeing the country. I don't know if he was allowed to leave.
No, actually, and normally I wouldn't correct you. The president left.
President, okay.
under fear of total annihilation. The PM, who was attached at the hip, steps in, and now the people are. I actually have a clip. The people are up in arms about that. So I don't know if this PM is actually safe either. And under the circumstances, I don't think he should be.
And look who else we've got. Not necessarily all related, but we have Boris Johnson stepping down.
Yep.
We've got Prime Minister Draghi tried to step down. I don't think his resignation was accepted.
Why did Boris Johnson step down?
He was.
Was he
first
forced
of all,
to step down?
First of all, there was a thing called Partygate where he had everybody locked down, and him and his people were having parties at number 10 Downing Street.
There was some sexual misconduct in his administration that he hid.
Yeah, some guy he propped up was had this Me Too stuff against him somehow, and he covered it up. So they're done with him.
Sounds like a friend of Bill Clinton's.
Yeah.
But listen.
Who else? We had Estonia. The Estonian prime minister stepped down.
Oh,
I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head.
But
dominoes are falling. This is that raindrop thing.
Yeah.
That I'm urging people to keep in mind, because these things have a cascading effect. Now look at Germany. Germany today or yesterday restarted like 11 coal and oil power plants.
They just came out and said they were going to reduce their nuclear, and people were going to freeze. Yeah, and they got massive pushback on that.
Yes. Right.
What do you think is going to happen in the United States? I mean, Biden has the lowest approval rating. People clearly are up in arms. Even his own people are against him, for other reasons. But during the next election, cycle that's coming up, the next presidential election, if our country turns around and puts people in power that really care about the people, won't our country come back to life?
Yeah, short answer is yes.
What do you mean put people in power? Republicans?
Well, Republicans, but people are, I use Republican loosely. I'm talking people like Trump that are really going to come in and kick some ass.
Yeah, well, there will be more Trump Republicans. How quickly that could turn around, I don't know. You know, frankly, I have concerns whether we make it to 2024. As far as a Democrat nominee, you notice when Joe Biden hit the road for Saudi Arabia to get on his knees and beg for oil, Gavin Newsom visited the White House.
Yeah, what the heck is that all about? Do you think Gavin Newsom thinks he has a freaking chance at being the next
Joe,
president?
Well, he has nice hair, you know.
Joe, Gavin Newsom is Nancy Pelosi's freaking nephew.
Yeah, so there you go. And
Do I have to say anything
the
else?
tentacles keep getting longer and longer, and the rabbit holes get deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I mean, you remember fortification. They could easily fortify him right into the White House.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear Paul Pelosi's getting an endorsement from Porsche. That just could be a joke. I don't know.
No, he's getting an endorsement from the blah 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 microchip company that he
$5
bought.
million investment.
Yes, and then Nancy announces a $50 billion government subsidy of the microchip industry.
And right in your face with impunity, they're
right.
breaking the
Yes.
law. Yeah, it's
right in your face, they do it.
Yeah. Well, I said once, I think it was today. Nancy Pelosi she actually thinks that she's going to stuff her casket with all this money. It's just, I hate to tell you, like Jim Morrison said, no one here gets out alive, and there's no luggage racks on the hearse. He didn't say that, but I did.
Yes,
so,
your soul will be called to account,
yeah,
Nancy.
Yeah, and we're all going to watch. That's going to be interesting. But until then, let's listen to this little piece from the Sri Lanka economy protest.
So while Gotabaya Rajapaksa is out of the country and out of his job, it's still far from over in Sri Lanka. People say that they want a complete shift in the political scene here. As you can tell, there's still a lot of different sort of political manoeuvring to go through over the next week. And none of that changes the reality on the ground, which is this country is in the middle of a severe economic crisis. It's broke. It has no foreign currency. It can't afford to buy food, fuel, or medicine. People are absolutely frustrated and fed up with it. The government is barely functioning at the moment. It has been trying to get money from the International Monetary Fund, as well as begging for money from countries, including Russia, Japan, and China. But right now, it doesn't have enough.
Now, I had to dig for that. Okay. It's nowhere. This stuff is nowhere to be found. My jaw dropped when I was
what news service was that?
I'll have to look it up.
Oh, okay.
Have it where the link is.
Yeah, that's not some. I tell you what, if you want to find news, you're probably, as crazy as it sounds, at this point, you're probably better off going to foreign news sites like you said, Sky News, even Al Jazeera,
Yeah, I've seen some good stuff
Russia Today,
or
all of whom are demonized,
Or you could watch CNN and just report the opposite, and you'd be correct.
Yeah. Whatever happened to OAN News? I used to watch that. And I haven't seen it.
Come to think of it.
I think they deplatformed OAN
for
saying something about January 6th or whatever. So they're like gone from YouTube, gone from Twitter. Nice. It probably crushed them.
And they don't have the money to get on independent. But I believe Trump at one of his rallies made a compliment to somebody that had an OAN shirt on.
Yeah.
And that was it.
That was the death knell. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Because we have to. This country is administered with spite. That's what the Biden administration is. They're spiteful. It doesn't matter, and they don't care about you, because they basically are globalists. And China is probably the only holdout for money. I'm going to guess right now, just from looking, with the billions we sent to Ukraine, there's a let's call it a platinum triangle between the Biden cartel, Ukraine, and China, and there's billions floating around. I mean, uncountable amounts of money floating around.
Yeah.
And I think it's a nothing more than a laundry scheme.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, it's been well known. Ukraine was like the number 2 most corrupt country on the planet for years and years and years.
yeah.
And all of a sudden now, after Trump makes that phone call, they are a beacon of shining democracy,
Right.
And of
Right.
course, once the special military operation kicks in, they are the last best hope for the West.
Well, isn't it also ironic that Trump got quote unquote impeached for a phone call to Ukraine, and now we're sending billions? I mean, there's just this is crazy. If I'm going to send any money anywhere to support a country during a war, I hate to say it, but it's going to be Russia. So, not that I'm
Yeah.
sending anybody any money, but
Yeah, we should do a thing on Russia and Ukraine one of these days because people are so misinformed. I mean, even the CIA came out and said, "Yeah, we lie."
well,
Uh,
that's pretty much what the CIA does for a living.
I know,
Well,
but
you
it used
can't.
to be illegal. I think it's called the Smith-Mundt Act that said the U.S. government cannot use propaganda against its own citizens.
Well,
Now, I'm sure they got around it through, Operation
The
Mockingbird
U.S.
and these kind of
government
things.
lies to us every single day of our lives. You can't trust any part of our U.S. government. You can't trust the FBI. You can't trust the CIA. You can't trust the FAA. You can't trust any of them. That's all they do is lie.
Yeah, well, it didn't used to be this bad, and you both know that because you're old farts like
yeah,
me.
yeah.
In 2013 or 2014, Obama, in a dead of night addition to the NDAA, added a line mooting the Smith-Mundt Act and permitting the government to use propaganda on its own people. Obama did that.
Which is a direct infraction of the CIA charter, not working within the confines of CONUS, of the
Right.
continental
Yeah.
United States. Know a little something about that, and well, again, another topic. Yeah, with as many small countries as they've taken over and propagandized. But it's very easy to go to Central America uh, as an asset or as an officer with the CIA, take over a small country, put in a puppet, and let that puppet either work for or against the United States, hence proxy. So what's the difference?
Right.
People don't see that because most people, what's the stat? Most people don't look at Joe. You don't. I mean, you keep up with stuff, but you don't watch anything. I don't watch anything. I mean, I have a little insight into some stuff, but we're just average guys, and we're that dig a little deeper. But anybody that doesn't want to even do that, they don't realize what the international spies, I dare I say that on a recording, are doing. And now in your face, we're in a proxy war with Russia as Ukraine is the puppet for some odd reason. So yeah.
Well, it's not an odd reason. United States and the West for a long time, obviously since the fall of the Soviet Russia, uh, had planned on raping all of Russia's natural resources.
Sure.
They've
Yeah.
got steel, aluminum,
Yeah.
rare earths, oil, all these things.
They just need the resources. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was being kind of tongue in cheek because you with the Russia hoax we heard for 4 years, there's no possible way. And again, since the Biden administration operates on spite, that's its blood. You can't possibly say anything redemptious about Russia because that would backfire, and everybody from pencil neck Schiff on down would lose credibility as if they had it.
Well, here's the thing. What are they going to do? Because Russia is winning.
Oh, of course they are.
And,
Of course they are. They're days away.
I don't know how far things are going to go. My original thought was that they would go to the Dnieper River and stop, but they may push up and, maybe make a play for Kiev or maybe they'll just take Odessa and Transnistria, and they'll own the Black Sea, and whatever is left, they'll issue an ultimatum to whatever is left of Ukraine, which won't be much. But they are slowly grinding Ukraine into the dirt. And Ukraine, these people are horrible, evil people using civilians as shields for their military.
They're also using international mercenaries as shields, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, they have police stopping people at checkpoints and conscripting them.
Yeah.
It's
I got to say, Putin is being a moderate.
He is
to some degree, because again, you have to go with the misinformation that we get, because they've been in a war for 8-10 years on the East Coast. He could have crushed them anytime he wanted. And again, with I hate to use the word incestuous because it's filthy, but that whole deal with when Obama was in office, this is just going on and on and on and on. And I honestly think, and I'm not saying Putin is a saint. I don't think they're ever going to put him on a chain and hang him around your neck. But on the other hand, he's got to be scratching his head saying, these Americans, and I hate to, it's not the Americans. It's obviously, when they talk about that, they're talking about whoever's in the White House, are absolutely insane. They're absolutely insane.
They have decoupled completely from the West. And getting back to my point, what's going to happen? What if Ukraine collapses completely after all the propaganda and all the money? What does this administration, this regime, do under that'll make Afghanistan's horrific embarrassment look like a kindergarten party. This is the end of the United States
credibility
on the world stage.
Well, we have a shameless administration, though, and I'm tongue in cheek again. He may not know it.
Who, Biden?
In his condition.
Oh, yeah.
But I think he's who's the mob guy? Is Gianti from the 70s, who used to walk out and check his mail with his bedroom robe or his robe on and his bathroom slippers to make the feds think he was crazy.
I don't know.
I forget which one he was, but and it worked for a while because he finally got arrested. But anyway, so Biden's either totally batshit crazy or he's acting.
Did you see?
Well,
Tucker Carlson?
Biden is not calling the shots. Biden is doing what he's told, and he has the worst of the worst, incompetent, meritless people, idiots from the Obama administration who are all ideologues.
Rice,
Klain, what's his name, Ducey or DC or
Deesh.
Brian Deesh. All these people are running things, and he just reads the cards that they print out for him.
He barely reads the cards. Did you
take your seat.
Did you see Tucker Carlson's a couple days ago when he was talking about Biden and the amount of drugs that they give him and what's going on? And I mean, it's pathetic. And all these people that are in his cabinet or that's in the White House are all people that know that Biden is totally incompetent. He's dementia.
He's not capable.
They're standing him up because they're in power. And they're not giving that power up. And
well, why do you think they hid him in his basement for a year during the campaign?
Well, two reasons.
They can't have him talking to the people.
One reason they hit him is because you're correct. They couldn't have him talking to the people. The second reason is they knew they were going to win.
Yeah.
Because why would you run? Why would a professional political campaigner run a campaign like that if they didn't know that they were going to win? I mean, is that a conspiracy? Well, as it turns out, it may maybe have been a conspiracy, but now it's just plain old fact.
Yeah, but you can't talk about that because then
we can. We
can, but nobody else can say that, because if you say that, you get dismissed. You get ended.
Well, what's nice about only having 40 people listening to this at any given time is I can say anything I want. So,
I don't
Yeah.
care if there were 10 million people listening to us. I'm going to say
Well,
Yeah.
you
I'm
know,
gonna say what I want.
5 years from now, some social justice warrior is going to go back through all of these podcasts and find the thing that we said to get us disappeared.
Well, and I don't want to say this too loud either, just in case that guy happens to get a hold of us in the next 2 years. But if you want to come and disappear me, maybe you got the wrong guy.
Yeah, you better bring friends.
So
Send bachelors, right?
yeah, send what was that? If you my best advice to you is to send plenty of body bags.
Yeah.
Was that Gordon Liddy?
No, Rambo.
Rambo. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it sounds like something Gordon Liddy would say.
Yeah.
Well, they generally don't go that far and disappear people. I'm talking about the podcast itself. Just
now, not unless I tripped over Hillary Clinton. And
yes, I want to make it clear that I have no evidence of Hillary's involvement in 111 plus murder, suicide, etc. I have no information whatsoever.
Listen, the government has a history of killing people that get in their way.
Well,
that's true.
That's our government.
Yeah, Malcolm X, RFK, JFK,
Martin Luther King,
the other black guy. Martin Luther King.
Did you just say the other black guy? That's so racist.
I understand.
Embrace your racism.
I am a racist. I prefer that my race does well. I prefer that black people do well.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Yeah, as soon as you start going there, I'm breaking out the soundboard.
I want all people to do well.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Okay. I hate it when I misquote a quote. Something about tides and ships. A strong tide rises all ships. How's that?
Yes. Yeah.
Something like that. But anyway, I don't know. We're going to solve the world's problems, but I hope that somebody listening at least got a gist of the information that's out there internationally as far as pushing back. Whether or not you can find it on your own, I don't know. Whether or not you believe what we played, that's not my problem either. But we put it out there for what it's worth.
And to end, final thoughts on possible scenarios that would cause something to spark off in this country. I'll start off. Really high food prices. Obviously, the Congress would respond with food subsidies, but that only compounds the problem. Maybe a financial problem, rising unemployment. What else we got?
I have a theory that I've been mulling around for a while, and I based it off of, this is going to sound ridiculous, I based it off of AAA game title sales and propaganda.
AAA game title?
A AAA game title is one of the big games that come out on the console, and they're the big money. They're $50,
like
$60,
computer
$70.
games.
Yeah.
Stuff that I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, or a console game or a computer game. But anyway, I read about this years ago, and it was talking about the advertisement and propaganda and those types of things. The point is, if you notice, and I've said this before to both of you, if you notice gas prices, we'll pick that for an example. They go up. And they go up. And sometimes they go up a dime a day, sometimes it's a penny a day, and then they reach a limit. And I think there's a bubble limit. I think that our government knows what that bubble limit is. And that bubble limit, in other words, is when it reaches that mark and starts going above that mark, that's when people get to the point of actual physical retaliation. Now, this is just my theory. But if you notice over the past several years, every time gas goes up, it goes to a level, it planes off. Now my gas in Florida is $3.93 a gallon. Okay, so
wow.
And now it'll start creeping back up, and it'll get to that $5 level. I mean, nationally average. I'm not counting California or New York because those are outliers. But it reaches a level to where people are getting to the point where they're going to start raising fists, so to speak, and then all of a sudden it comes down 10 cents. Now, I'm supposed to kiss somebody's behind because I'm only paying $3.93 for gas because I was paying $5 last week, So
Right.
that's my theory. I think when the person that's manipulating that fine line, I think when that ends, I think that's when we break.
Okay, well, I put it more towards food. You
Well,
put it more
yeah,
towards energy.
it could be energy or anything that that's going to pop the bubble, so to speak.
Although they are related, obviously, the higher energy
Right.
costs bring higher everything costs.
Yeah.
Anything that's got to be, shipped, trucked, whatever, delivered. So,
Joe,
they,
what's
they
your
are related.
what's your Nostradamus perceived breaking point?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think that I think they're just going to keep deteriorating our basic civil rights. I mean, when they start stripping away our basic of basic civil rights, I think that's going to be our breaking point.
Well, that you know what? That's three people, three opinions. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and they've all got solid backing. Solid possibilities.
And historical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. With that, gentlemen, I will say good night.
Good night, all.
I will say good night as well, and thank you for listening.
And then I'll get the last word in here, and I'll say good night. It's been fun tonight, gentlemen.
Thanks, Joe.
And just to stick it to Joe, I'm going to say that you are all now smarter than when you arrived. Congratulations, you are among the best.
Good night. Now shut it off.
Thanks, guys.